What's up? I'm Troubleshoot. It's long overdue to make an updated RLCraft dedicated server guide video, and that's exactly what I'll be showing you here. While the steps haven't changed too much since my last video, your PC likely has, meaning that running the server is probably going to be a bit more difficult for you if you don't know a couple of useful tricks. With that being said, let's get straight into it. But before we do, this video was sponsored by Apex Hosting. If you're looking for a fantastic Minecraft server host, and of course, Hightail host, Apex Hosting is a fantastic choice with powerful servers, fantastic customer support, unlimited slots, automated backups, powerful DDoS protection, and so much more. You can't go wrong with Apex Hosting. Click the first link down below and check the top of the page for the current coupon code. Right now it's APEX25 for 25% off your first order. When you're ready to get started, choose Get Your Server, select Minecraft Java, Hightail, or any other game for that matter, choose your server size, and when you're happy, don't forget to use APEX25 for 25% off, and in no time, you'll have your own powerful Minecraft server setup, whether it's vanilla or of course RLCraft. A huge shout out to Apex Hosting for sponsoring this guide. So, RLCraft. Heading across to the CurseForge page, you'll see everything you need to know, as well as how to actually install the game using the CurseForge client, but of course you can use things like Prism, etc. I'll assume that you've already got RLCraft installed and you just want to set up a server. Simply keep your eye on the sidebar here, scroll down, and eventually you'll see recent files. Scrolling down further, you'll see server packs, and right below this, simply click the top link, which is usually the more up-to-date one. You can check the date on the side. When you do, you'll see the latest server pack, then hit download, and wait for the zip file to download. Once it has, we can open it with something like 7-zip or WinRAR, and now we need to extract all of these files to a folder where our server will live. I'll right-click on my desktop, choose New, Folder, and I'll give it the name RLCraft. Good enough. We'll open it up and extract all of these zip files into it. Just like that, we've now done the first step of setting up our RLCraft server. But of course, you'll notice that server.jar is missing. We need to manually download Forge. For this, head across to the next link down below, which is the official Forge website. If you simply Google for it, you won't land up on this exact page. You also look more like this here. All you need to do is make sure that you have Minecraft version 1.12.2 selected. So on the sidebar, look for 1.12, expand it, and then choose 1.12.2. If you click the link down below, it'll take you straight to this page here. Then under the download latest header, make sure to click installer here. Due to the major log4j exploit issue, you need to download at least Forge 2860, which the recommended version isn't. So I'd highly recommend just using the latest, but if you have any issues, you can expand show all versions and choose a slightly older one from 2860 and above. Anyways, I'll choose the latest installer, skip the ad using the skip button in the top right, and now you can open up your freshly downloaded forge.jar file. If when you open it up, you see something like this, then you've got Java installed. If you instead see an error or something like that, you might not have the correct version of Java installed, and we actually need to make sure that we do if you encounter an issue later on. In the description down below, you'll find a link to the Adoptium page to download Java version 8. This is super important as this is what Forge needs. On the page linked down below, just scroll down a little bit and you'll eventually see this section here. Choose JRE under Windows and then choose the tiny download button next to .msi. This will download the latest Java 8 installer, which you can then open up and click through. Once you've got Java installed, you should be able to open up the .jar file and it'll work properly. Then eventually, when you see this here, just make sure to choose Install Server in the middle and then hit the 3 dots down here. On the next page, we'll need to navigate to, in my case, Desktop and then RLCraft on the screen. Obviously, you may have created your server in a slightly different location to the one that I have. Just navigate across to it, and when you see these files here, you're in the correct place. Choose Open. Now you'll see the same path here. Choose OK, and in no time, your RLCraft folder should be populated with a few more files. I'll hit OK, close the Forge installer, and now we see a Forge and a Minecraft.jar. Fantastic. What we'll do is rename the Forge jar file to just Forge.jar instead of all these numbers in between. Just hit F2 or right-click and rename and remove everything except for Forge and .jar. If you don't see file name extensions, don't worry. At the very top, hit View followed by show, and make sure file name extensions and hidden items are both checked. On Windows 10, on the ribbon bar at the top, you can choose View and then choose these two options on the far right as checkboxes. Fantastic. Now that we've renamed forge blah 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 to just forge.jar, we can actually start creating a start.bat or run.bat file. Now, to keep things simple, I've created a text version of this guide, which you'll find linked down below, and simply heading across to it, scroll down just a tiny bit until you see this section here. This is the start.bat file we'll be creating. Instead of copying this and pasting it into a text file yourself, you can just hit the download button right here to get it all pre-configured. I'll simply drag the file into my server folder here, and just like that, we're ready to go. Inside of this, if we right-click Edit, it opens with Notepad, and as you can see, Java forge.jar, and that's it. That's why we renamed the forge file to be just forge.jar. In between, we've got XMS and XMX, which is the minimum or starting amount and the maximum amount of RAM your server can use. Right now, it's set to 4 gigs minimum and 6 gigs maximum. However, you'll need to change this to match your system. You can check this easily by hitting Ctrl, Shift, and Escape at the same time to bring up your task manager. Inside of here, head across to the Performance tab on the far left and then down to Memory. You'll see your total amount of RAM as well as how much is actually in use. Now, obviously, I've got a ludicrously big number here, but yours might be more like 16 and 4 currently in use, or 6 currently in use. Let's say you've got 16 gigs of RAM and 6 are currently in use, leaving you with 10 gigs of RAM free. The RLCraft server recommends 3 to 4 gigs of RAM, however, you can give it more if you want to get better performance with more players and things like that. Remember to leave some for your game, your browser, Discord, etc., and then you can, based on that, give a slightly smaller number to the start.bat file. So, for example, we have 16, 6 is used, we've got 10 left over. We'll give the game, say, most of that 10 minus 1 or so for Windows and the rest. So I can say a starting of 4, and we'll change the maximum to 8, for example. Saving this file and closing it, we're now ready to actually start up our server, and you'll see one of two things when you actually double-click this file. If you see something like this, then you've got a newer version of Java installed, and you'll note simply because your error says something along the lines of launcher.java.lang reflect invocation target exception. Most of this has to do with how Java has changed over the years, and you can very simply check what version of Java you're actually running by hitting Start and opening a new PowerShell or command prompt or terminal window and using the command java-version as such. Right now, I'm set up to use Java 21, which is way more than just 8. However, I do have Java version 8 installed. You can check by opening a new file browser using Start or the Windows key and E, expanding C, followed by Program Files. Simply click anywhere, hit J to jump to J, and open up Java. Here you'll see all of the different versions you've got installed. JRE 1.8, etc. is Java 8, so I'll open this, followed by bin, and inside of here, we've finally got the correct version of java.exe. What I'll do is copy the entire path up here. So right-click, followed by copy address. Alternatively, you can click in a blank space and then right-click copy after you select everything. To tell our start.bat file which Java to actually use, right-click start.bat, edit, and simply replace java.exe with 2 double quotes, and inside of them, paste in the path that we copied. In my case, C program files java JRE 1.8, etc. /bin. Then enter a final backslash followed by java.exe, and that's it. We've now told our start.bat file to use the correct version of Java. Your file path might be slightly different, and of course, if you get a bit lost, there is a text version scrolling down just a small bit right over here. Save this start.bat file, close it, and run it once more, and this time you'll see something a bit better. As you can see here, the server's actually starting up. Eventually, it'll close because of you need to accept the EULA. That's okay. Press any keys to continue, and then you should see a couple of brand new folders and files, including EULA.txt. Open this with any text editor and change EULA equals false to EULA equals true. Save the file, and close it. Now, before we actually start up our server for real, make sure to open up any important looking text files in this folder, which for me, there's one called For Servers Only, Set These in Server.Properties. Opening this up has the most up-to-date info that you need to be aware of when you're running your server. In my case, it's telling me to open server.properties and make sure a couple of things are set. So I'll simply locate server.properties and open it with any text editor, including Notepad. Once it's open, we need to look for allow flight. So I'll copy it, Control F to search, paste it in, and there we go. Allow flight is set to true. We need to make sure difficulty is 3, which mine is. Max tick time is -1, same here. And finally, enable command block is set to true, which it is here as well. Yours should be the same as well by default, unless this file was regenerated by Forge, which it likely wasn't. And finally, right below this, it's got a few more steps like pre-generating chunks, which we'll touch on later, as well as a couple of other hints for upgrading your server from a previous version. For now though, we can close this and we can run our server start.bat once more, this time actually starting up our RLCraft server. Fantastic. At this point, you can also launch up your actual RLCraft client, whether you're using CurseForge, Prism Launcher, or anything like that. Once everything's started up, you should eventually be able to actually connect to the server running in the background here. Inside of RLCraft, I'll head across to multiplayer, followed by add a server, and we can add either localhost, one word, or 127.0.0.1. I'll hit done, and just like that, you should see your server running. We can join it, and shortly after, we're ready to game. Although it seems like we spawned underwater. That's not great. Well, there we go. Actually landing on land this time. We're now inside of RLCraft, and we type something, you'll see we're speaking on the server, so everything's working as expected. If you wish, inside of your server, you can OP space your username to give yourself op, so you can change your /game mode and things like that. Pretty cool. However, of course, at this point, it's just us and nobody else. There's a couple of things that we need to do to make sure everything's working properly for our friends to join, as we have set up a multiplayer server. For now, we can disconnect, and inside of our console, we'll learn how to save and close our server. In the future, you can use save-all to save your server, and then follow it with stop to gently bring your server to a close. Eventually, press any key to continue, your server's successfully shut down and everything's been saved. However, you can of course leave it going at this point, as there's a few things that we need to adjust. Firewall rules and port forwarding. Obviously, port forwarding sounds pretty scary, but it's actually rather simple. For now, firewall rules. All we need to do to allow other players to connect to our server is to allow Minecraft through our Windows firewall. This is super simple if you haven't got a third-party antivirus or firewall interfering, in which case you'll need to search how to allow Minecraft servers through those. However, for most people, changing rules in your Windows firewall should be more than enough. You can hit start, type in firewall, and adjust everything yourself, but you can also head across to the same text version of this guide linked down below and scroll all the way down until you see this colorful block here. These are a bunch of rules that we can use to allow Minecraft on port 25565 through our firewall on both TCP and UDP, inbound and outbound. Simply just hit the copy button in the top right. Now we'll need to paste these into an admin PowerShell window. So hit start, type in PowerShell, and right-click Windows PowerShell and choose Run as Administrator. Inside of here, we can right-click or Control-V to paste everything we just copied, then hit enter a few times to make sure everything's run, and once we've now successfully allowed Minecraft through our Windows firewall. At this point, someone sitting right next to you connected to the same router should be able to join your Minecraft server, assuming it was running. They just need to know your computer's local IP address. To figure out that, hit start, type in PowerShell or command prompt, and open up either one. Inside of either, type in ipconfig and hit enter. This will show you all the different ways you're connected to networks. Simply scroll up and find the way you're actually connected to the internet, be it Wi-Fi or, in my case, Ethernet. Look for your IPv4 address, and this is the local IP of your computer on your local network. In my case, 192.168.1.51. This is what someone sitting next to me will use to connect to my Minecraft server. That's fantastic, but what about people over the internet? Well, here's where things get a bit more confusing, and that's port forwarding. Now that we've figured out our local IP address, we simply need to tell our router to send all packets for 25565 to our computer. That's basically what port forwarding is. What you need to do is find the admin panel for your router and set that up. However, as there are so many different kinds of routers, I've set up a very simple example here to show you everything you need to know. Simply head across to your router's panel, log in, and head across to the security and port forwarding, application forwarding, game forwarding, or something like that section. Inside of here, you'll be able to enter an external and internal port, in or out, something along those lines, as well as a protocol, local IP address, and that's basically that. All you need to do is, in my case, set the external port as 25565, and because it's asking me twice for a range, I'll need to copy and paste the same number into both of these. Then we'll say which port it's going to, which is our local PC's port, the same one, 25565, and because I have to enter it twice, I'll do that here. Then protocol will choose both TCP and UDP. However, if you can only choose one at a time, add it once for TCP and again for UDP. Then we'll need our local IP address of our computer, and it's filled in most of it for me here, except for the last few numbers. Using that same ipconfig command, we can see our local IP address. In my case, it's .51, so that's what I'll enter here. And after we save the rule, just like that, we've now port forwarded Minecraft to our particular computer. And if we simply Google, what is my IP? We can copy that number and give it to other people where they should be able to join our server, assuming it's running. That's it. It's that simple. Now, something I completely forgot to mention, inside of the same README, it speaks about pre-generating chunks. While this isn't required, it should give your server better performance when there's more players running around, generating more chunks at once. As the more things are being generated, the slower your server will run. Instead, you can pre-generate those chunks, slowing things down temporarily. You can probably do this overnight, meaning that when players run around, things are already generated. You can use these 3 commands here. Simply copy and paste each one into your terminal to get chunks around spawn generating. And of course, you can use this 4th command down here to automatically pause the chunk generation whenever a player logs onto your server. Assuming you run all 4 of these, your server will generate chunks quietly in the background, which could slow down your PC just a little bit while it's actually thinking about things, but eventually once it's done, you should get much better performance on your server, especially while exploring. So while this process is a little bit more confusing than your regular Minecraft server, it's definitely not that bad at all when you understand what you're actually doing. But yeah, a huge shout out to Apex Hosting for sponsoring this guide. Thank you for watching. Hopefully this updated guide helped you. My name has been Troubleshoot, and I'll see you all next time. Ciao.